According to PKF CEO Alpesh Vadha, the government should implement the national tax policy to enhance transparency and predictability in tax administration.
The government to perhaps follow the established, financial positions. For example, the medium-term expenditure framework. We are talking about the national tax policy, which has been published but yet to be gazetted. This is going to create sanctity. And by and large, what we have also seen is very insensitive taxes being introduced on the same people who pay taxes. Kenya has got a very big informal sector, close to 65 to 70% of our economy is in the hands of the informal sector. These are the people who are very difficult to tax, and true to it, government has done something in the right direction to try and tax some of these people, and especially the people making supplies to government. There is a proposal to introduce withholding taxes, and this is going to put them in the limelight of the Kenya Revenue Authority. And this has been a big segment of, business community that does not comply with taxes.
I think the government should relook, go back to the root cause and understand what they need to do. Because I think the only way we should increase our taxes is if our economy is growing, because that will put away a lot of foreign direct investors. Because if our taxes are too high, if the disposable income is not there, because people want to come into the country and make money. But if our 190 don't have disposable income, if they don't have enough income to purchase goods and services, then we'll come and invest.
Well, of that story, let's get into it. And Nelly Chepkemoy is the vice chair, which We Care organization, and she's here in studio to give us insight into this conversation. Now, Nelly, of course, the fact has been that there's very many different aspects where the youth would feel that they are being, given the short end of the stick in this debate around the proposals in the finance bill. Let's break that down from where you sit as a young person. Yeah. What is your take?
So thank you, first of all, for inviting me here to be with you this night. I think for me, I'm looking at it where when you look at the proposals that have been given to us at the finance bill, you get to see that many of those proposals are really touching on not just even the youth themselves, but really on that common person, the person we call mwananchi. But, I'm here to speak on the youth voice. And we feel, or rather the youth bloc feels that these proposals are kind of insensitive, because currently we are in an economic crisis as a country. So people are struggling to make ends meet. Just last year, we saw the effect of the Finance Act of 2023. The effect of it actually led to 70,000 youths losing jobs. So you can only imagine what can happen, or rather what job loss crisis we are looking at when this specific bill is implemented, or rather passed in Parliament later this month. Yeah.
One of the perspectives, and I'm glad that you brought that up, is that we are yet to fully crystallize the outcomes of the finance bill from 2023, the Finance Act. In this case, things like the housing levy, the increase in NSSF contributions, the SHIF, and several other things through there yet to crystallize. Do you think it is wise to now load more tax on top of this?
I think when you look at the current regime, it came with the notion of it wants to better the lives of Kenyans, the lives of youth who are a majority of the populace. And for them, at the moment, we are currently witnessing a different thing from what they promised. Because you'd expect now and if I may take an example, in the finance bill, they had an increase of the excess duty that is directed to the internet services. They're moving it from 15% to 20%. So imagine that now, where the youth or majority, just recently, a few months ago, the president joked and even talked of the youth pressing their laptops and getting dollars out of it. So we are now even witnessing them trying to make that platform expensive by increasing the taxes on internet. So this is really going to impact the youth rather, because as we talk of trying to enable that digital economy, we are killing it by increasing the taxes on it.
But Nelly, I know of situations where, for example, a robber who was caught in the US robbing a bank, and he was asked, why are you always stealing from banks? And he said, because that's where the money is. Now, this government is seeing the places that are growing, the places where there is money. There's a lot of money in the digital space. There's a lot of money in mobile money. And hence the need to tax this. Do you think this is the right way to go? Do you think that we need to give this more time?
I think it should be given time, because when I want to agree with the government that we as a people need to pay tax, because it is the tax revenues that develop the nation. But while we are looking at that, the tax policies, we must also remember it's not always also about revenue mobilization. It also needs to be about the industrialization in our country, because you cannot tax a near dead economy. And when I'm looking at that specific angle of internet, what we should be doing is creating an enabling environment for that sectors, for example, by lowering the internet costs. You cannot increase the taxes on the internet and you still expect more productivity. Because if you want more productivity, create an enabling environment that is rather trying or rather sees the impact. Because if we keep talking of taxes and raising them each and every other day, but we have a poor healthcare system, we have an education sector that is currently really shrinking at the moment. Security detail in the country is, it's going down. So while we speak of these taxes, we need to see them at work. And this is why at WeCare, we are trying to also kind of bring in the youth, especially those students in higher institutions, because we are looking at an education sector that is being punished for no mistake, for no doing nothing. It is being defunded. It's having cuts. When you look at the budget, I just noted some of the statistics here. You have a whole school feeding program that is being defunded completely of 4.8 billion. When you go back to the education, the higher institution education, which we are involving the students, the university education itself has been cut by 22% in the budget. So they've also introduced a new funding model for education students that is going to make university education or other higher institution education very expensive. So for us, we are trying to also bring in these students now to tell them that if you keep quiet, if you do not take part in these processes, then your livelihoods are likely to be legislated out of existence. So with this, we are starting, or rather we've started a project of having transparency and integrity clubs in the higher institutions, where students and the youth out there who are not in school can take part in these processes. For example, this specific finance bill, we had a pleasure of being invited to face the Committee of Planning led by Honorable Kuria in Parliament. And one of the things we did is to bring one of the students who is a part of one of the established integrity clubs we have established. They went and faced the committee and told them that after introducing this new model of funding, you've now coming for more taxes. We have a tax that is going to increase banking services. If you look at the country, the economy is run, it's run by the banking services in the nation. So when you make it expensive, it is going to have a ripple effect on rather the youth, not on specific education, but it's also having a ripple effect on other services that they're involved in.
So then my question to you, Nelly, would be, with all these things that you've outlined and knowing the challenges that the country faces in terms of having to raise revenue to pay off large chunk of debt, what would you do if you were president? What would you do if it was up to you?
If it was up to me, I would turn my eye on the parliament, because at the end of the day, they're the decision makers in the country. They're the representatives, and they offer that legislative and oversight role. So even the finance bill that we are talking about, we are in quite a noisy political season, which is good for the country. You get to experience people now waking up to the fact that they need to be aware of whatever policies that are being done. So if I was to, lead this, I will look at Parliament and tell them to hear the people's voices. We've gone through a public participation process that people have aired out their views, not just the youth, including that Mama Mboga. So our Parliament needs to take up that role that they need to do and, you know, rise to the occasion. So I myself, if I was the president, I would turn to the parliament and tell them to listen to the people and ensure that the people's views are taken into account. Because as we stand and as we speak today, the budget will be read on Thursday. When the parliament comes back from recess and they are going to talk about this same bill, Kenyans are watching. So my only urge is, or rather what I would do, is to turn to parliament and tell them to rise to the occasion, not to be, you know, remote control, but rather stand independently as an independent institution. Because if anything is to change at that specific